Some coaches teach hitting. Monte Lee builds offensive juggernauts. Year after year, his teams don't just hit, they dominate, blending power, patience, and pure skill to dominate the best arms in the country. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hitting genius behind South Carolina's offensive firepower, his approach, his mindset, and what separates great hitters from elite hitters. If you're a player, if you're a coach, or you just love the art of hitting, this is the episode you can't afford to miss. It's an honor to welcome back to the show the associate head coach and hitting coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Monte Lee. Monte, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, Ian. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Appreciate you being here again, man. Always good to have you back here talking about the success that you've been able to put forth, especially with the hitters, man. So like you guys are about to open up Valentine's Day. It's coming up, man. Sacred Heart. What is life like for you right now? What's preparation like in anticipation of a huge opening weekend?
Well, it's pretty busy right now. I mean, obviously we're trying to shift our focus from team practice and a lot of inter squads where we're just playing against each other to now we're just focusing on another opponent, which is nice. But with along those lines, I'm going through every single one of their pitchers, looking at their tendencies, how they pitch guys, what they locate, what they don't locate, what type of characteristics their fastballs and breaking balls have, trying to put together game plans for left-handed hitters, right-handed hitters in our lineup. And then also I do our infield positioning. So I look at all of their hitters, where they hit the ball on the ground, how I feel like we need to position our infielders, and also taking into account our pitching staff and where are the ground balls hit against those guys. So it's really just trying to tie all of that information together along with the preparation this week for what they're going to face opening day against Sacred Heart. So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. We're pretty excited about being able to play somebody else. We're pretty tired of playing each other.
I bet, man. I bet. So we're gonna get into that. Obviously, like the level of play, the type of arms you guys face, being in the SEC. But first, I wanted to highlight the offensive machine that you guys have over there, man. 100 home runs again in 2024. 100 plus home runs. Stole 66 bags. 411 on base percentage. 382 walks. Like some teams are known for their power. That's their identity. Others are known for their speed, small ball. It's kind of how I came up, obviously, in the Northeast. If you had to define South Carolina's offensive identity under your leadership, right, under the helm of what you are thinking about when it comes to offensive approach, mindset, man, in one sentence, what would that be?
Discipline and adaptability. I think those are probably the two words from an offensive standpoint that we want to be really good at year in and year out. Is we want to be disciplined at the plate, so we want to have a plan when we walk up to the plate, and we want to be adaptable. We have to be adaptable to the pitcher, and we have to be adaptable to the environment. We've been known for being a team that's hit home runs, did a lot of damage, extra base hits. But we also want to be a team that if the wind's blowing in, if we're facing a guy that has a really good sinker and he makes you hit the ball on the ground, when the hitting conditions are not ideal, we want to be a team that can score runs. So I think it's really about being adaptable as an offense, understanding the circumstances, how you need to adapt and adjust as an offense. But we want to be, we always start with we want to be good at the things that you cannot defend. I think that's where it starts. My philosophy is pretty simple. We want to be good at the things you can't defend. You cannot defend the ball when it goes over the fence, and you cannot defend the walk.
Mm.
And the way that you hit the ball over the fence and the way that you walk is by having discipline. So plate discipline is paramount if you want to be an offense that maximizes your run production because about 88% of the time when you put together a big inning where you score 3 runs in one inning or more, you typically have at least 2 free 90s. So a walk, an error, a hit by pitch. A lot of times it's a walk. So if you're disciplined at the plate, and that doesn't mean that we're passive. We want to be super aggressive to the pitch and the spot that we're looking for the baseball. So we
Mm.
spend a lot of time looking for a pitch in a particular location. We're ready to ambush that pitch, but if that pitch is not in that tunnel and it's not the pitch that we're looking for, we take it. The count doesn't matter as much as the lane and the pitch that we're looking for. So we hunt pitches in certain spots. We look to drive. We want to be really good at being able to drive the ball to the opposite field gap. We feel like that keeps our guys connected swing wise and being able to use the whole field. Again, we look for pitches that we can drive and we attack those pitches. We value swing decisions and we value quality at bats. Those are the two things that we spend a lot of time talking about with our hitters, and we also train our guys in incredibly competitive in-game environments
Mm.
to prepare them for what they're going to face in the SEC, which is the best pitching in the country.
What's going on, everybody? We as baseball players, we as athletes, we all have something in common that we all share with one another. At some point, our careers are going to come to an end, whether we play 15 years in the league or whether we don't make it past high school or college. This is called the Money Playbook. So this teaches financial concepts for student athletes, for professional athletes. It's got a bunch of financial concepts in there that I didn't learn until I was done playing. Go on over to Amazon and check it out. It's called the Money Playbook. It's written by Mark Tepper, who is an NFLPA registered investment advisor. So he has worked with a plethora of professional athletes. Like I said, go to Amazon. We'll leave the link in the bio and the description of this episode. It's a must-have. Check it out. Let me know what you think. So you obviously want to have hitters 1 through 9 that are disciplined, are able to adapt, able to adjust. When it comes to these approaches that you're talking about with your players going up to the plate, having a plan, having a locked in approach, hopefully that they don't deviate from. Man, if this SEC pitching is as close to professional baseball pretty much as it gets, right? What do your hitters have to do differently when it comes to this discipline and adaptability in order to have the success? So is it just being able to stick to the plan and approach, adjust and adapt on certain, like, how much of it is adapting the approach that they have? Do they change that stuff?
It depends. Like again, and I can give you some examples.
Please.
I think one of the things that we want to make sure of is that we have a default system. I think that's super important, and that default system is our foundation. Okay, so we start with our foundation, and our foundation is we want to be able to drive the ball on the outer half of the plate. Okay, so if there's 7 balls that'll go across the plate, we want to be really good on ball 5, right? Like the ball that's out over the plate. We want to be good on that fastball, which means you have to have good posture in the batter's box to cover that pitch. So we spend a lot of time training in really good hitting posture, being able to cover the ball on the outer half, and we want our swing connected to our body to allow us to hit that pitch to the opposite field gap. And what we find is that guys that can maintain good posture throughout their swing typically have better bat paths. And they typically can handle multiple pitches. They can handle the fastball, the breaking ball, and the changeup. So your bat path allows you to handle those pitches. You're not going to have a good bat path if you don't load correctly and you don't put yourself in a good posture to hit. That's the swing. So we want a swing that's connected, that allows us to cover multiple pitches and hit the ball to all fields. And we want our swing and our approach to match to the best of our ability. We want to look for the ball out over the plate and trust our swing. If we're in a good posture to hit and we have a good bat path, then our swing and our approach will match. We spend a lot of time on external targeting. So, we call it knockout punch. We try to drive the ball into the opposite field gap as much as we can. That is our base approach. So if we don't know anything about the pitcher, we don't know anything whatsoever, that's where we start. And then we adapt based on what we see in the game. So if we go into a game and we say, look, this guy can locate his fastball, but he doesn't locate his breaking ball, then we'll just sell out to his fastball and eliminate the breaking ball altogether.
Mm.
Well, the first time through the batting order, if we see that the guy is landing his breaking ball on that particular day, then we have to honor the breaking ball. So we have to go from a fastball spit mode to a fastball adjust mode. If we notice that runners in scoring position, he's throwing a lot of breaking balls and a lot of breaking balls for strikes, there's times where we will look for the breaking ball. Okay. So we have adaptable and adjustable approaches and plans based on what the pitcher is giving us. But we
Mm.
always want to make sure that we hit from a position of strength, which is to cover the outer half, have a connected swing with good posture, and drive the ball to the opposite field gap. That swing and approach are probably going to produce you the most efficient at bats and the most runs over time.
That makes a ton of sense on my end. I absolutely love that. Appreciate you providing examples, man. I didn't even necessarily know how to ask that question, and there you are delivering on it. I love that. So we've seen velo going up, we've seen spin rate going up. Pitchers they have crazy repertoires, man, and they're explosive, right? These guys are getting nastier, and so things we have to adapt, right? If we want to be a successful hitter, we have to adapt, just like the stuff you're talking about, man. Has the offensive approach, in your opinion, man, has that changed or evolved in college baseball over the years with all these pitchers kind of starting to get nastier? We're seeing triple digits, man, crazy spin rate. And like, how are you adapting with that stuff to stay ahead of the curve? Are there specific ideas or drills, man? Or run me through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as, the level of pitching continues to elevate, then the training environments that we put our hitters through have to elevate as well. We tell our guys, like, you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight. So, if all you're doing is tee work and flips, and then you go out there and you're facing a guy throwing 95, with a slider and a changeup, and he has wipeout stuff. You don't want to train for to feel good. You don't want to train in a flip tee, nice easy coach pitch 52 mile an hour fastball right down the middle. You don't want to do low variability practice environments and then think that you're going to go out there and hit a guy that pitches like that. So we do crank up the machine. We try to train in space. I think one of the things that we try to do to adapt to pitchers who are throwing harder and harder is we try to train more in space. We want the ball farther away from the hitter at 55 feet as much as we can, so that we are training our guys to move and react to pitches at game speed and space. I
Mm,
would rather train in space than I would with speed.
okay.
I think that sometimes, if you look at, I'll give you a perfect example, and then I'll kind of tie back in your original question. If you look at guys when they hit off of machines, and this is a big mistake that I think most hitting coaches make, is they see a guy throwing, we're going to face a guy throwing 93 miles an hour, and you take, your hack attack machine and you put it on 93 off the hack attack. Well, the spin rate on that fastball is so high and the ball is getting on them so quickly because there's no body moving to deliver that pitch, then the hitter's swing time will go down.
Mm,
So, if a guy starts his initial move, his foot gets down, and then he swings and makes contact with the ball, like an average hitter is like a 1 to 1.25 seconds from the time he starts his gather to the time he makes contact with the ball. Well, if you take that same hitter and you have him hit off a hack attack throwing 93, all of a sudden his swing time goes to like zero point 0.9 because
whoa.
he's loading later and having to speed up to get to the ball. So we don't typically try to blow the doors off our hitters off the machine. We try to make sure that their swings are more within their natural swing times than speeding up their swings to get to the ball. We don't want to create shouldery, jerk, oriented type swings. Emergency hacks is what we call them, where they're really speeding up to get to the ball because they're hitting super high velocity. Um, so we don't necessarily go super high velo wise. I would rather train guys in that like 86 to 88 mile an hour range, but at 55 feet, so that they can make clean moves, their own time gather. They're not rushed and creating a lot of effort in their swing. They're actually trying to hold their hands back, to hit the ball clean. I would rather, train in that environment. And we hit a lot of spin. I think hitting spin, breaking balls, is hitting breaking balls off the machine is probably the best thing a hitter can do to develop his bat path. You have to have a good, clean bat path to be able to hit the breaking ball. So I actually, we want to make sure that daily that in our regiment that they're hitting an equal amount of breaking balls to fastballs, because the game is 50-50 fastball breaking ball now. Like most pitchers are throwing, 50% fastball and breaking ball, in some cases more off speed pitches than fastballs. So it's very important that we train with some variability from a swing standpoint and from a game ready hitting environment. We want to make sure that they're hitting both.
You want to be able to play like you practice, right? So if you want to be able to play at a championship caliber, you're probably going to try to practice at it, right? That makes a ton of sense, man. I think that's important. Coming up, man, we would rarely do the off-speed machine. You know what I mean? Curveball machine, put it on slider, whatever the case. Even in the minor leagues, man, it really wasn't attacked that much. Something that really stood out to me as I was progressing through my career, we started doing more machine type stuff with more availability to tech and stuff. You could throw in specific parameters and it would throw a specific pitch. That's crazy. I'm hitting with D Gordon, right? So a little speed guy, and we're both lefties, and we are facing a left-handed curveball. We were facing like a lefty that day, and we're working off the machine. And he had told me, look, our approach, what we're trying to do is we want to go to that left center field gap, right? A low line drive over the shortstop's head. For us as a speed guy, that's what we were doing. He told me that when we are facing the curveball machine or an off-speed pitch, we're not going to be trying to drive that over the shortstop's head, especially in a game, right? If we are going to attack that, if we're on fastball timing for a line drive at the shortstop, if he flips something, then we react to it. We're probably going to drive it in the right center field gap, right? Does that sort of make sense? So he told me in the machine as a 9-hole hitter, pretty much, man, make sure we're hitting this the right way. Try to pull this over the second baseman's head, just like we would pretty much in a game, man. How do you tell your guys to attack that curveball machine? Is there a specific way? So if you guys are aiming at that opposite field gap, that's
Mm-hmm.
the foundation that you build.
Mm-hmm.
Does that change with an off-speed pitch?
It's a great question. So I'll try to explain it to the best of my ability. Number one, when you're hitting a breaking ball machine, I think it's very important to make sure that your hitters. I tell our hitters, like if they're hitting like a softer breaking ball, I will tell them time it like he's throwing 95. Because you have to be on his best fastball timing wise to see, can you hold your hands back and hold the ground as you move forward? Even it's okay to get out on your front foot on the breaking ball. It's going to happen. But can you hold your hands back, or do you commit too early with your hands to the breaking ball? That's where you get the rollover, ground ball, the weak ground ball to the pull side of the field. So I tell our guys, make sure you're on time to the heater when you're hitting the breaking ball machine, because you want to challenge yourself to hold your hands back and hold your weight back as you move forward to hit the breaking ball. The second thing that we tell our guys is look, I still want you to think and remember, just because we are thinking right center field for a right-handed hitter, or in your case, left center field for a left-hand hitter, that doesn't mean that we want to manipulate the bat to make the ball go there. What that means is we're thinking left center field if I'm a left-handed hitter, simply so that I maintain good posture and stay on that pitch, and I may pull it and hit it over the fence on the pull side of the field. So just because I'm thinking right center field or I'm thinking middle of the field, that doesn't necessarily mean that the ball's going to wind up there. What it means is I set my sights on that target to allow my swing to work back through the pitcher. We call that external cueing. Like for instance, I had a kid that played for me many, many years ago who was a dead pull power hitter. He looked like he was a splitting image of Dan Ugla. He was a second baseman, short, squatty, strong, hit 20 plus home runs, was drafted. The guy was really, really good hitter. In batting practice, he hit everything to right center field. And his reasoning for it was, he said, I have to think right center field and train right center field in batting practice so that I can keep the ball fair. because I get so many breaking balls. Like if I don't train myself right center field, right center field, right center field, I can't keep the ball fair when I hit it naturally in the game. So I think right center field, and then I just let my swing work, and I wind up pulling it. But it's the only way I can really backspin it and keep it fair. If I start looking in, or I start over swinging,
Top
then
spin.
or trying to hit home runs, then I'm hitting balls past the third base coach's box, or hooking them foul. So
Yeah.
it's really more of a mindset of hitting the ball to right center field and thinking right center field, so that you stay on pitches with good posture.
Yes. So that's something I could never fully wrap my head around. If I'm thinking left center field, I would do everything I could to try to get the baseball there, manipulate the barrel. So it's
Yeah.
like, man, that's what I would revert to in times of panic. Just try to get the hand eye going, the athleticism going, put the bat to the ball, man, but it's just a bunch of weak contact, man. It's crazy to wrap the head around. That's a different aspect of being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like Freddie Freeman, I heard he said anybody can hit home runs in batting practice. His batting practice, he wanted to be kind of locked in on that same idea that the second baseman that played for you, that kind of reminded you of Dan Ugla, would be able to have that feel. So I love it, man. How often would we be able to go out there if we're in the cage or on the field with a curveball machine and just take a fantastic batting practice, right? The barrel up, everything, man, left center field, right, everything, everything. But are we getting ready like it's a fastball and challenging ourselves, man? That's a different level of preparation, man. I love that. Fires me up. When it comes to two-strike hitting, okay? So we talked about you guys doing damage. We talked about you guys having discipline, walking at a high clip, getting on base, man. What is your philosophy when it comes to two-strike hitting? Do you emphasize any type of, mechanical stuff, shorten up, choke up, man, or do you still want your guys taking chances, hunting for doing damage?
I think it depends a little bit on. I look at it in two different ways. Okay, so I used to be much more simplistic. You got to expand a little bit with two strikes, cover a little bit off the plate, try to hit the ball the other way. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily all the way there. Here is the absolute. The absolute for me is you have to see the ball up and you have to see the ball deeper. Okay. Because you get those guys that have big time juice, they're going to get a ton of spin with two strikes. So your chase is typically with two strikes. So your chase is typically going to be down. Okay. So we tell our guys, look, I would rather you chase up than chase down with two strikes. So we look for the ball up. The breaking ball that starts up above the strike zone is going to be the hittable breaking ball. The breaking ball that starts in the strike zone is going to be a ball. So we try to cover high, see the ball up, and see the ball deeper, and then we change our field of play. We want to hit the ball hard, like to the opposite field with two strikes, but we really just try to back the baseball up as much as we can. We don't want to run out of bat with two strikes. And we actually still do a decent amount of damage in two strikes simply by just seeing the ball up and thinking, let the ball get deeper. A lot of times we'll run into off speed pitches and hit them hard with two strikes simply by letting the ball travel more and letting it get deeper. I think that you have to look at a hitter and determine, okay, when he thinks expand, does he expand? Does he chase more? Or, you have some guys, and I can give you some examples of, like, with two strikes, I would much rather a guy who chases a decent amount, I would rather him shrink the strike zone with two strikes, because pitchers tend to try to get them to expand and chase. I would rather them shrink the strike zone with two strikes and actually stay sometimes more in the middle of the plate and back the ball up. But my base approach with our guys, where we start, is we look to, cover the ball away, but see the ball up and see the ball deeper with two strikes. We call it, look, before two strikes, we call it A hack. And with two strikes, we call it B hack. And with B hack, we're just seeing it up and seeing it deeper. We actually use what we call our B hack approach. We'll use it in situations too. Like if you got a runner at third, less than 2 outs, that's an opportunity when they bring the corners in. That's an opportunity where pitchers are going to spin it more. They're going to try to get you to swing and miss or hit the big hot pull side ground ball so you can't get the runner in. So like we'll use our B hack approach in situations like that. so that we can get the run in, just to stay on the baseball more than anything else. So um, some guys I'll have expand if they have great hand-eye coordination and they don't strike out a lot. That's a guy that I'll say, hey, look, you can look for the ball, one ball, two balls off the plate, and choke up and spread out and just use your steering wheel. Like the guys that are steering wheel hitters that have good hands, we can have them expand a little more. The guys that are more engine, that have more power, but have a little more swing and miss, we may get them to shrink the zone. We still back the ball up, but we still want them to take their best swing, because they can still do damage with two strikes. So I think it depends on the hitter. It depends on their swing and miss and contact rates a little bit. The more they swing and miss, the more we shrink. The more contact they make, the more we can expand a little bit. But probably the number one thing for us is see the ball up and see the ball deeper, because we know chase is typically down, and chase typically happens when you run out of bat out in front of the plate.
Mm, okay. Oh man, this is a master class right here. Uh, Again, we are here with Monte Lee, associate head coach and the hitting coach for South Carolina. Man, this is incredible. So you've obviously you've coached multiple programs. Okay, you coached for a long time, man, and you've primarily won. You've done that across multiple conferences, man. What are the common traits that you've come across with some of the best hitters that you've ever coached?
Hmm. It's a great question. I would say probably, outside of just their pure God given talent and ability, I think one of the characteristics that I've seen with the best of the best is that number one, they want to be in the biggest moments. There's a huge difference between the guy that's a really good player, like a really good hitter, but is kind of a front runner hitter, a guy that hits when you're up, a guy that, you know, the guy that hits the bullpen arms, after the starter gets out, you're up by 8, he hits a long home run. And there's a different animal, when it's a 3-3 ball game in the ninth, winning runs at first base and he juices a ball in the gap and you win the ball game, or he hits a big home run late against the best relievers. you know I think the higher the leverage the at bat, the best players, that your best hitters show up in those moments. So I think that the leverage of the situation, the ability to handle pressure, but like to embrace pressure, I think is a huge factor in when you look at like what do the best of the best do. The best of the best is the guy in your lineup that you want up with the game on the line, because he embraces that adversity versus he's nervous and maybe I don't know if scared's the right word, but he don't want to screw up. I don't want to
Yeah.
be the guy that doesn't come through. It's like I am the guy that's going to come through. I think that's a mindset, and I don't know if you can necessarily teach that, but I've seen it. Some of the best guys that I've ever had. I remember, Seth Beer, who played for me at Clemson. Seth was the National Player of the Year as a freshman, 2016. He was an unbelievable clutch hitter, maybe one of the probably the best in the clutch hitter I've ever coached. And he said, I just feel like I go underwater in high pressure situations. I kind of like go underwater. I feel like I'm underwater. I literally
Wow.
can zone everything out, and it's just me and the pitcher, and that's the only thing that I can hear or even focus on. I don't think about anything else. And
Was he?
I
How
thought that
was
was
he able to get there? How would
that's
was
a
it a
great
certain?
question. It's a great question. I think those guys can just slow the game down. They can slow their breathing down and the stress in their own mind, and become very, very singular focused on, I'm just going to see the ball and not try to do too much. Um, Justin Smoke was one of those guys, played in the big leagues for a long time, was a first round pick here at South Carolina. Steve Pierce played in the big leagues for a long time. He was one of those guys. It was like the bigger the moment, the more they wanted it. um, and I think that there's some alpha male to that. There's just a level of belief. But the one thing about all those guys too, they also had the trait of, if they went 0 for 4, it didn't seem to bother them a whole lot. Like they could get over it pretty quickly because they knew they were really good. They didn't let one bad game or a bad stretch bother them. The guys that are typically inconsistent, they're a roller coaster of emotions. They're really high and they're really low. They're really high and they're really low. The guys that are just kind of steady Eddie and have that belief and trust their swing. They don't change their swing a whole lot. They don't change their thought process a whole lot. Those are if they have some ability, those guys usually wind up being really, really good.
That's I love that. I love that. Appreciate you elaborating, man. Appreciate you providing some examples. I've obviously heard of those guys, man. Smoke, absolutely nasty. Spent some time with the Mariners.
Mm-hmm.
Just heard a lot of good stories about him, man. Didn't get to share a locker room with him. Heard he was nasty. Obviously, saw he was nasty as well. So when we're talking about the next generation of baseball players that hope to one day play for South Carolina, hope to play for you one day, man. Hope to be on the SEC stage. Is there a common mechanical flaw that you're seeing or approach issue that you see in these younger hitters that hope to one day be on this level? Whether you're recruiting, man, whether you're seeing some tournament baseball, what is it that they're doing the mechanical flaw approach issue that prevents them from reaching their full potential? Is there anything that
Ooh.
stands out?
Yeah, one of the things that stands out as far as a mechanical flaw that I think is probably one of the hardest things to break is, um, you know, some kids are being taught to really load back towards the catcher. And if you look at big league hitters, like big league hitters don't load back, they load in. Like a lot of your big league hitters, like when you watch big league hitters, like when they load back and they're getting ready, to stride and hit the ball, their head stays pretty much in the center of their body. They kind of load in versus swaying back. Like so one of the things that I look for is like when a guy starts to load and when he begins to stride, does his belt buckle stay parallel to the ground as he's striding forward? That means his pelvis is staying underneath his body. He's going to land in a 50-50 position and in a good position to hit. When you see guys that sway their pelvis back and they load back into their back leg, then they really get into their rear quad. And what happens is as their pelvis begins to sway forward when they stride, a lot of times their belt line will be pointed up as they stride slightly up. And when you see that guy who's really in his rear quad and kind of pushes out towards the pitcher, those guys typically have zero adjustability on off speed because what happens is they pull their hands forward and they hit from here. They don't keep the slack out of their upper body. The guys that keep their head still when they load and then they stride and their pelvis is underneath them, they can hold their hands back longer so they have more adjustability. The guys that, get into their rear quad and then push out, a lot of times their hands start coming forward too early and they, what we call swing out of hand. You see the guy that swings out of hand at the breaking ball, he's swinging, he's committing to the pitch before it ever gets there. A lot of times it's because he loads back too much and then he sways forward. His head comes forward, his hands come forward. He just commits to the pitch too early. The guys that can hold their hands back and keep their heads still when they load, those guys tend to have better swings that allow them to compete at a higher level. So I just look at their belt buckle. If their belt, when they load, if their head stays still and they don't load back, they just kind of load in what we call attacking posture. Their head stays over their belly button or even their nose stays slightly forward when they load. Those guys get in a better position to hit. They typically have more adjustability. They load into their hips. They don't load into their quad.
Ooh, man, that is something I couldn't wrap my head around. Couldn't consistently get there. So the year that I debuted in the big leagues, man, 2019, I'm hitting 260 consistently, back to back to back, zero power, man. I'm just slapping the ball around. I have no idea what's happening. I go to Tim Laker, who was the big league
I
hitting
know Tim
guy.
Laker. I know
So
Tim Laker. Yeah, I've
I
actually
owe
worked. I actually worked with Tim Laker for a brief period of time. I was with the Dodgers for a brief period of time and worked with Tim. He's phenomenal.
Dude, I credit him obviously to a whole lot of being able to have a 2019 that I had, man. So working with Tim Laker, JD Jared DeHart, who is now taken over, kind of hitting for the New York Yankees, man. Brant Brown, St. Louis head guy, head hitting coach, man. These guys were preaching to me and trying to get me into that back hip, man. I was a big time sway guy,
Yeah.
messing around with a big leg kick, and then like I'm trying to go get the baseball, so I'm just jumping at it off speed pitches, man. making love with the second baseman, just rolling everything over. Terrible. Couldn't figure it out. These guys revamped it. Tim Laker was a huge impact, man. So it fires me up. You kind of diving into that, man. That's awesome. It took me 27 years to figure that idea out and that concept out, man. So it's makes me it really does fire me up. I love it. So we talked about some common mistakes that you might be seeing in these younger hitters that are hoping to have an impact at the SEC level. We just talked about how nasty these pitchers are. It is quite literally professional baseball, right? What is a hitting myth, in your opinion, Monty, that a lot of young hitters still believe when it comes to hitting?
Ooh, a hitting myth. So that's a good question. I think one of the things, I don't know if I would call it a myth. There seems to be, there's a lot of talk on social media about kind of like the traditional thought process of swinging slightly down, or, some of the newer age ideas of like swinging up, to match the plane of the ball. I don't really see a whole lot of guys preaching and preaching to swing up. It seems like, that I don't really hear that a lot. But I know that it's like, do you swing up or do you swing down? Like, what's the best way to approach the baseball? Um, and the answer is neither, really. You don't you What you want to do is you want to figure out what works best for that player. Like if you've got a kid who his swing plane is uphill, he's going to top spin a lot of balls. Okay. So like an uphill swing creates top spin. A downhill swing can create backspin, but it can also, you also see guys clip balls and they pop them straight up. Like when you pop a ball up, okay, this is one thing that drives me nuts. When a ball is popped straight up into the infield, it's because your swing was too steep down on the ball, not because you were underneath the ball and popped it up. You always hear he keeps dropping his back shoulder, and the reason he's popping balls up is because he's swinging up on the ball. No, it's the exact opposite. When you pop a ball up, it's because your swing is too steep down on the ball. You catch it a little bit deeper and you pop it up. So it's not necessarily about teaching guys to swing up or swing down. It's really about trying to get guys to get the barrel on the plane of the pitch. Well, how do you do that? You do that by using your engine. So like when you swing a bat, when I get in a position to hit, as I begin to rotate into the ball, the barrel is going to match my shoulders. Like wherever my shoulders are is where the barrel line's going to be. So if I don't rotate through the ball, with my trunk, if my trunk doesn't deliver the barrel, I'm not going to be on plane to the pitch. If I'm very handsy, I'm typically going to be steep. And if you're steep to the ball, you may be able to backspin a ball and pull it, but you will not hit anything away from you and down, nothing. So you don't want to be overly downhill and you don't want to be overly uphill. Another thing too, 95 out of 100 times, you can watch a baseball game. I would ask anybody to do this. Just watch a baseball game. When a hitter swings and misses at a fastball, 95 out of 100 times he swings under it. He doesn't swing over it. He swings under it. So thinking uphill works, that doesn't work either because you're going to be underneath the ball. So, if you're going to lean on one way or the other, it's better to think slightly down probably than it is to think slightly up. The problem with thinking slightly down all the time or swing down on the ball is you get very handsy. So I don't necessarily think about either. We don't talk, but if we see one drastic swing plane, if it's too far up, we may tell a guy, hey, think down so that you can flatten the barrel out and get on plane to the pitch. But I want guys to deliver the barrel with their trunk, get in a good position to hit, and let the trunk be the driving force. One of the things I think helps guys get on plane to pitches probably the most, I like two-hand finishes in the cage. Like when you watch a guy hit a home run on a fastball, watch 100 home runs hit on fastballs. A lot of times when they hit the fastball, they'll two-hand finish and then they'll recoil the bat back down. Now you'll see guys literally like they'll hit a home run and then the bat will come back down. They'll stick it with two hands and the bat will come back down. That's because they brace so firm at contact with their front leg. They're braced so much that the bat has to come back down. That's a great swing. So we do a lot of work where we'll hit balls and recoil the bat back, just to train them how to use their trunk correctly, to hit the ball. And guys will murder baseballs in the cage when they recoil the bat back. They'll hit it
Really?
and they'll brace their front side a lot, and then the bat will recoil back down, and they'll start to understand how to use the ground correctly. Because you don't necessarily rotate from the ground up. You get into the ground and you rotate from the top down.
Okay.
So it's really understanding how to use the ground, and then what types of drills create the best swings. I would say that's probably a myth, whether you swing down, swing up. If a pitch is going to come in at -5 to 10 degrees, well, obviously the swing plane is probably going to be coming slightly up as you hit the ball, but the hitter may have to think slightly down to get to it. If a guy's throwing a rod heater, like a flat rod heater, which we see a lot, you really got to get to the top of that ball and think down just to be able to get to that pitch. Whereas if I'm got a guy that's got a sinker, I want to point the barrel down and stay inside it. And actually, I don't necessarily think swinging up, but I'm thinking more middle of the field and point my barrel down to hit the sinker. So the sinker swing is more of a linear swing through the pitcher. The rod swing is more of a flat and circular swing to hit that pitch. So you better have, a couple different, swings to be able to hit a guy that's a rod guy and then a guy that's a sinker guy.
Yeah. Okay. So this SEC pitching, man, this is no joke. I feel like my best years at the dish, I was able to hit those sinker ball guys that lived at the bottom of the zone, get my bat to where I needed to go and be able to ride that out, not roll over. Maybe there's a direct correlation between me being able to impact the baseball as a little speed guy and having a good bat pat there. Who knows, right? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to figure that out as the career is already done. But this has been huge, man. Monty, I appreciate the time. I got one last question for you. So you've had 21 winning seasons in your 22 years as a full-time college baseball coach, man. If you could take everything that you've learned in the entirety of your coaching career and give one piece of hitting advice to the next generation, what would it be?
Oh my Lord. I think one of the things that's always been very important to me when it comes to coaching hitters is that, take your best swing. Like, you're going to swing and miss, you're going to chase, you're going to fail, but you're never going to fail with your best swing. Like, every time you take your best swing, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with you swinging and missing as long as you take your best swing. What I'm not okay with is you deselling and slowing your swing down. I'm just not okay with that. So I want you to fail with your best swing. And that's always been my thing is when you walk up to the plate, we're always going to take our best swing. And if you fail, you fail, but we're going to fail with our best bolt. Because I want the hitter to have the freedom to be aggressive, to take his best swing. And if he swings and misses, he knows that I'm never going to tell him to dumb his swing down or just try to make contact. I never want to take that out of a hitter. So I trust our hitters to take their best swing. I would just encourage, kids, to always take their best swing, have a great approach with good direction, but take your best swing. Don't go up there. And I cringe if I'm at like a little league game or younger levels and they tell the kid, hey, just put the ball in play. That drives me nuts, because it's a defensive swing and the swing is not defensive. It's offensive. So I would say if there's anything over the years from a hitting standpoint that I've preached and preached and preached is take your best swing every time and let the chips fall where they may.
Beauty. Beauty. There you have it. Everybody, this is a hitting masterclass here with Monte Lee from South Carolina. Monte, thank you so much for your time, man. Appreciate you letting me kind of run you through the gauntlet of questions again. Looking forward to seeing the absolute success you guys are going to have in 2025. Best of luck this weekend, man.
Thank you, Ian.
Yes, sir. So there you guys have it. Great hitters. They might not just be born, they can be built through discipline, approach, and a relentless commitment to mastering their craft. We heard Monte Lee talk about it. Monte has spent decades shaping elite hitters, and today he just gave you the blueprint. Now it's on you. Take these insights, get in the box, and take your best swing. We'll see you guys back here next time. Thank you, everybody. Keep grinding.